You are now tuned into the TRUENORTH.BET podcast with your host, Brandon Graham, and pleased to be back to go over everything NFL and, of course, NCAAs we got to fit. All right. Once again, it's the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. You can find us on Spotify, on SoundCloud, and many other platforms, of course. Just make sure you put in the TRUENORTH.BET podcast, and we'll get right into it. So, this week, week 10 in college football, so we only have 3 more weeks left until, of course, all of the college football playoff implications will be set. It's going to be really, really, really interesting as we go through it. And I know I told you, I'm going to start with NCAA because, regardless of what happens today or whatever day when it comes to the NCAA, there are going to be set teams in the college football playoff. And there was a potential of having 4 SEC teams when it comes to Tennessee, Georgia, at one point LSU and Alabama in the college football playoff. But now that's not the case because LSU beat Alabama in Death Valley. Amazing atmosphere. I'm not too sure if there's any better atmosphere than the LSU Death Valley in general. It's just incredible. But, of course, Alabama is now out. Now they've lost to the likes of Tennessee by a field goal, and they've lost by the likes of 1 point for LSU going for in overtime by 1 point. So it's incredible to say, but Alabama hasn't lost. It's uncharacteristic, but they haven't really lost their step because they still have the former Heisman winner in Bryce Young. And of course, now Jamar Gibbs, who's a great running back, but this year is just not their year. And unfortunately, because Bryce Young is a junior, he's most likely going to the NFL next year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they shake it up, how Nick Saban does it. But they are now officially out of the college football ranks, all of the college football implications in general. Going to be one of those years where they won't win because last year they lost in the finals. The year before that, they won. Nick Saban's just used to excellence in general, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of regroup from this. But they got to win out. There could be an implication where they do end up in because Alabama always has some sort of hold on the college football playoff administrators, the panel in general, those guys that actually make the decisions. But one thing that stands for sure is right now you have number 1, it is Georgia. Georgia beat the brakes off of Tennessee last week, are going to go through and beat a number of teams this year. I don't think they're going to lose at all for the rest of the year. They're going to stay number 1. Ohio State won 21-7 at Northwestern, a 1-win team. And now this week play Indiana, where they're going to comfortably win that game. Right now, I believe they're going to be up. They're going to be up. They're going to win that game. They're going to stay at number 2 most likely. But one team that is creeping right now and is at number 3 is the Michigan Wolverines. I think this is the best team that Jim Harbaugh has had at Michigan in a long time because I think McCarthy is the best quarterback he's ever had. Now he has Blake Corum and Edwards in the backfield that are incredible running backs. And I think that the offensive line is way better than Ohio State's offensive line. They've invested in the offensive line. They've gone out and got the best players at offensive line, and they're going to be really tough to stop. And they play the Ohio State Buckeyes on November 26th, which is in the last week of the season. As it always is, always the game up north, the team up north, so on and so forth. It's going to be incredible to see exactly what happens there, but it's in the shoe this year. Last year, Michigan did lose to Ohio State. Ohio State did lose to Michigan at the Big House in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but now it's going to be at Columbus, Ohio in the shoe. So that's going to be interesting to see. On a perfect weather day, I would easily take CJ Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Emeka Ibuka. You can go down Julian Fleming, Jackson Smith-Njigba as the guys to win that entire game. The Ohio State Buckeyes to win that game. It was a really good weather game, but they always play the last game of the season. It's going to be a cold one. They usually do end up winning when they're at home, but this Michigan team is a problem. They, in many cases, some people think are the best team in the entire league, but they did lose to Georgia when they're in the college football players last year with Aiden Hutchinson on the line and some other guys. So it's going to be really tough to see. I don't necessarily think that they're the best. I think they're probably number 2, number 3 right there with Ohio State. So right now, the college football playoff panel is pretty much setting us up for that game, the game up north between Ohio State and Michigan, November 26th. That's going to be incredible. And no one's going to miss that. I'm going to try to be out there for that game as well, too, because that's one of those games that you just have to be at in general. So with that going up, Michigan's playing Nebraska today. Easy W. And, of course, number 4 team in the league would be not even Tennessee, right? If we were to look at the standings right now, in all the AP 25, right? Because it has changed around. It's actually TCU. And TCU, they haven't lost. They have a wide receiver who's going to be an NFL star. Their quarterback has been there for years. They're playing Texas today. It's going to be tough to see. We're going to see exactly what happens there because Texas, yes, they're playing in Texas, in Austin, but at the same time, the quarterback they got right there, who is a former Ohio State Buckeye, right? He's pretty good. He can sling the ball. He can get it done. Quinn Ewers, this is his game. Like, this is the game he has to play really well. This is the game he has to do a lot of the field, getting the ball to Bijan Robinson, getting the ball to Xavier Worthy on the outside. They have the potential to upset TCU, which would put them out of the top 4. And then you have a team like number 5, which would be Tennessee. I think Tennessee deserves to be the college football playoff. Just if they win out for the rest of the year, they did get Shalek killed by the Georgia Bulldogs last week, but they can definitely bounce back. And we'll see what happens, especially if Ohio State loses the last game against Michigan. Are they in? Are they out? I say that they're in because they play a really finesse style of football. Plus, there's always a big 4, okay? You have the Georgia Bulldogs. You have Ohio State, Big Ten Kings, all right? You have Alabama. You have the likes of there's only 1 to 4 teams that are actually always going to be there, right? So Alabama's always going to be there. Georgia's always a team that they love. Clemson's another team they love. Ohio State, Michigan. Those are the teams that the college football panel want to get into those games, right? Until it expands in a few years, those are the big marquee games because they have the biggest fan base. They have a lot of people actually supporting them as they go. It's going to be really tough to see them not get in there. But that's the college football landscape. It's going to be interesting. 3 more weeks left of college football action in general. It's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But it's always a ride, and every game is like a playoff. So that's something that we have to keep our eyes on as we go, okay? On Sunday, the biggest news right now in NFL, and there's a lot. One thing's for sure is that Tampa Bay's playing against the Seahawks in Germany, in Munich. They only have seats for 80,000 people, and there are 3 million people, 3 million requests for tickets in Munich. So you can see that everyone wants to get out there. Tom Brady, winning that game last week against LA Rams, which was a snooze fest, but still getting that W after pretty much dropping of quite a few games. They're playing up against Geno Smith, and Geno Smith and the Seahawks have been rolling. Kenneth Walker III out of Michigan State is a dog, and not too many people were thinking about this, of course, at the start of the year. He's an absolute dog. He's an absolute wagon. He's a great running back. Hopefully he stays healthy. But I say that the Seahawks can actually upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have not looked good this year at all. If you really think about it, they have not looked good this year at all. Tom Brady has not looked good. Of course, he's going through a lot of personal things with his wife, so on and so forth. And ironic enough, she is German. He's going to Germany for this game. It's going to be interesting to see how that all goes. And when people say that there's one player or one person that the entire world, when it comes to sports, knows. So, of course, in sports, you know LeBron James, you know Michael Jordan, you know Cristiano Ronaldo, you know the Messis. Those are international stars. In football, I always wondered who the one guy is. And without question, it has to be Tom Brady. He must be known around everywhere because it comes to Super Bowl. I always wonder, because you always know internationally, soccer is that sport. You got boxing, you got basketball is an international sport right now. You don't see too much football being an international sport. You do have a lot of teams or a lot of countries seeing football and having different leagues, but you don't really see it as a global game. I guess because there's such a North American bias when it comes to it, and North American coverage when it comes to the game in general. But when you take everything out, not take Aaron Rodgers, it has to be Tom Brady as the one marquee guy that everyone in the world just knows as football, right? And he's going to that into Munich, playing up against in 9:30 in the morning, just like most of these weeks have been. You wake up, you got a game, 9:30 Eastern. They're going to be in Munich. 3 million requests for tickets. It's incredible. There's only seats for 80,000. That's incredible. And we'll see exactly how that game pans out. But it's going to be an interesting one because now the World Cup is coming upon us. That's going to be something in a few weeks we'll see panning out now that the Premier League and all these leagues are having their last games this weekend. World Cup is about to start. So there's a lot going on in the world of sports. And, it's exciting. It's just a great time of the year, probably the best time of year when it comes to sports right now. But other good news in the NFL is the fact that Josh Allen had an ulnar issue with his elbow. He's in 2 of my fantasy leagues right now. It's going to be really tough if he doesn't play. He's listed as questionable right now. Just throwing elbow as well. They're playing the Vikings, who are 7-1. You're a team that just lost against the New York Jets. yes, granted, it's not the same Jets. You have Sauce Gardner, you have Zach Wilson, Breece Hall is injured, but you have Michael Carter at tailback. You have guys. Conklin is a really good tight end thus far right now. Uzama. Defense is playing really well with CJ Mosley and guys all around. They're just showing a Quinton Williams playing really well for the Jets and Robert Salah, Coach Salah. You let me know what exactly you think it is. Salah. I think it's Salah. Because like Mo Salah, I'm a Liverpool guy as well. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that. But the fact of the matter is that the Bills did lose to the New York Jets last week in the game that they should have won. The game that they were, it was on 2017. It was tied at 17 for quite a bit of time. And of course, ended up losing in the Meadowlands to the New York Jets, who are seemingly making the AFC North very, really interesting. Really interesting. Understanding now that the Dolphins, every team in that division is playing well. Everyone in the division is actually playing well. Every team in that division is not a scrub in general. The AFC East, my fault. And understanding that exactly the Bills, Patriots, who are usually the top two teams, are now being challenged by the Miami Dolphins, who I think are a lot better than the Patriots this year. And the New York Jets are actually winning as well. But you never know. You might have three teams coming out of the AFC East for the playoffs. We'll see. But once again, when it comes to wildcard weekend, you can have a great year. When it comes to wildcard weekend, you make it into wildcard weekend, you got to win that game, or else your entire season is all for naught. Now with 17 weeks, just like Josh Allen's number in the season, it's going to be very tough to see some teams play that well for quite a long periods of time and then just lose in the wild card divisional game. That's another story too, because football, it doesn't matter if it's NCAA, high school, it's an emotional game, very emotional, very up and down. You're not playing really well, and I say this as a guy that coaches and plays. You want to make sure that you're firing all cylinders, and you want to be consistent, but it's very tough to be consistent because it's a game that it's very hard to be consistent. And the fact that the Patriots did it for so many years and won in the AFC East, dominating the Bills, dominating the Jets, dominating the Dolphins, and won, it just shows you that they were just the marquee top for excellence. So Belichick, Tom Brady, Josh McDaniels, Patricia, all those guys, when you have a cohesive unit and a team that just is really disciplined and runs it as a really like tight ship, almost similar to a military type of situation, then you can win. But I don't think we'll ever see that again with a team's going to win consistently the Super Bowl, because it's such an up and down game. You would never in a million years think that the Buffalo Bills would lose to the Jets, as a few weeks ago we were crowning them as the kings of the AFC, kings of the NFL. You can't say that anymore. You can't say that at all, because they have a lot still that they have to overcome. And now with Josh Allen and Case Keenum as a backup, that's going to be even more integral for them to kind of rally behind their guy, because it's really hard to stay on top in a game where there's so many injuries. Like, for instance, Panthers cornerback Dante Jackson actually suffered a torn Achilles. I had a torn Achilles in April. Now I'm getting back. But it takes a long time to recover from these injuries and stay on top. So we wish Josh Allen the best. We hope that he stays healthy. We hope that he plays against the Vikings, because it's a better game when Josh Allen is playing football, and we'll go from there. The Cardinals lost to the Seahawks last week, and we can go on and on and on about different teams, but even Kyler Murray right now is a hamstring injury, right? And he's a game-time decision versus the Rams in that NFC West. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back. They're now on Hard Knocks. It's a team that, for the most part, play really up and down. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is a really effective coach. I think he's actually one of the worst coaches in the league. I think what he puts on tape, what he puts out there, is the same thing he's done when he first got there. It's just a spread offense to benefit what Kyler Murray likes to do, is get out of the pocket, scramble, get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. But you can see right now they're in Hard Knocks. DeAndre Hopkins is getting that Kyler Murray. The hardest position in sports, I say this all the time, the hardest position in sports is to play quarterback. But when you have your guys like DeAndre Hopkins, who's a star, calling you out, you know something's wrong in Arizona. It's incredible. We'll see exactly what happens with them, because they have gone from a team that has made the playoffs with this young quarterback in the last year, lose that game, had to come back, give him a big contract. Now there's distractions behind that, because they're going back and forth. There's a lot of leaks of his contract, so on and so forth. It's just really, really interesting to see how that's going to pan out, because I think They've signed Cliff Kingsbury for a long period of time. That's a mistake as well, too. They got to get rid of him. They got to clean out house. They've got a number of guys at receiver. Now they have Robbie Anderson there. They got Hollywood Brown, I believe, is a little bit injured right now. You have DeAndre Hopkins. You have Dortch. You have guys that can play. Rondell Moore, Zach Ertz, a tight end. You have guys that can play, but you're not putting together because defensive wise, too, like Budda Baker's out. They were better. Isaiah Simmons played better. This defense was better, but now they're getting torn up by these teams. You should not lose the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks went into their home and took their lunch money, took their dinner right from them, disrespectfully. And Geno Smith has been a great surprise this year. I'm really happy. He said at the start, he's like, hey, they wrote me off. I ain't right back, though. And that's exactly what it was. People wrote him off from when he was a backup with New York Giants, when he was drafted out of West Virginia, and now he's showing you, backing up Russell Wilson last year, just playing right now, that he can actually do it. He has a great arm. He's making good decisions. He's getting the ball out to Tyler Lockett, of course, to his big-time wide receiver DK Metcalf, to his tight ends, Noah Fant in there. Like, he has guys in those team. Kenneth Walker, as I've already talked about, they have guys, and the defense is playing really well. You got Kobe Bryant. I know I said Kobe Bryant, but he's a really good DB. You have some other guys in that secondary that player playing extremely well. Young guys, they're doing a really good job of building around them, and they're moving, man. They're moving. It's going to be interesting to see how everything goes. But right now in the AFC East, you got the Buffalo Bills, number 1 spot. You got the Jets at 6-3 that actually, because they beat Buffalo, are number 2. Miami's number 3 at 6-3 in the AFC East, and the last place team is the New England Patriots. How the mighty have fallen. I'm just going to go through all the divisions right now, just so you have an idea of exactly where we are. Because, of course, I started this initially 3 weeks ago. I'm going to continue doing this. In the AFC North, we got the Baltimore Ravens right now at 6-3. All teams Buffalo Bills 6-2, but all teams for the most part, the best record is 6-2, and that's right now the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. But every team, no team has 7 wins yet. Every team, the most wins is 6. You can see it's a more of a balanced year. Not really seeing too much traction or too much, back and forth. No, I'm sorry. The Eagles are 8-0. That's a mistake on my part. And then, of course, the Vikings are 7-1. But in the AFC, we're seeing that there's no team that has 7 wins as of yet. Until this week, we might see it. Baltimore 6-3, Bengals 5-4. You got the Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers now with TJ Watt coming back in the fold, seeing exactly how they go. Tennessee Titans are 5-3. They once again, they haven't thrown a pass to a receiver in 3 weeks, and that's because Ryan Tannehill's out. Malik Willis is not getting the ball out quick enough. They're not really giving them chances to throw the ball around. They're just giving the ball to Derrick Henry, and they're just getting it out of the way. Colts surprisingly are 3-5 in the AFC South, but will not make the playoffs. Now they replaced Frank Reich with Jeff Saturday, who has had no NFL experience as a coach. He says he knows how to lead men, but has no experience in general, and at the same time, not necessarily going to be playing as well as before. But anyhow, with that in mind, I wanted to make sure that we all understood that in the AFC, there are no teams that are over 7 wins. In NFC, you have 8-0. Dallas Cowboys are 6-2. They're playing the Green Bay Packers this week. Packers have been abysmal at 3-6, but still number 2 in that division, behind the Minnesota Vikings at 7-1. They need to pick it up. They haven't played well in a long time. All of their wins have been kind of fluky. Aaron Rodgers is not playing well. They don't have any receivers, and I saw this coming. The reason why he had 2 MVPs the past few years is because Devontae Adams was in the fold. He can get the ball out quick. They had quick audibles from the line. Devontae Adams made incredible plays. He got paid, and now he's in, for lack of a better term, mediocre hell with the Las Vegas Raiders because Derek Carr cannot get in the ball for save his life. That's a problem there that we already have. Tampa Buccaneers are 4-5, leading the NFC South, and the Falcons are 4-6. And we have the Seahawks at 6-3. 49ers are 4-4. I think the 49ers will probably creep up, and it'll be the Seahawks and 49ers in that league. And we'll see exactly what happens from there. But the Arizona Cardinals have the same record as the Green Bay Packers, and they're at the bottom of their division at 3-6. They need to pick it up. And with Kyler Murray being resting this week, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens going forward. But this year has been, scoring has been down. It hasn't really been a great, really easy, predictable year thus far. You have an idea of which team might stay close. We don't really have an idea of which team is going to win because all teams are up and down and not really as consistent. And this comes back to guys not playing as much in the offseason, playing in the preseason. I mean, in the preseason, when it comes to training camp, they're not necessarily doing too much, not getting out there and not doing as much as they usually have, which is something that we'll see, something that we've seen a little bit different this year. Now they had 3 games and have 17 games in the season. Guys are not playing in the preseason, and you see that they're taking more time to get used to everything in the regular season. For instance, Russell Wilson did not play in the preseason. All right. And now he has to kind of, you saw how bad the Broncos were to start the year and how now they're simply a mediocre team. So a lot of mediocre teams. Scoring is actually down this year. It's been in more of a defensive, anchoring in general. We're not really seeing as many points as we used to on the past few years, but we'll double check and see exactly where we are in a few weeks. Patrick Mahomes has been incredible. All right. I know I'm not going to talk too much about the Eagles today. Jalen Hurts has been really good. Really good. They're not playing. The strength of schedule is not really the strongest, but they have quality wins. Quarterback play in the NFC has been up and down. But guys like Jalen Hurts are showing exactly why he was drafted where he was. He's showing exactly why he took over the guy he was behind in Carson Wentz. Now he's seeing exactly why. He's a leader of men, squats a lot, is not running out of pocket as much, can stay in the pocket now, deliver because he has a guy like A.J. Brown. He has Devontae Smith. He has Goddard. He has guys that can get open, and he's finding them. And he's just a gamer. He doesn't really get down, doesn't really get too up. He's even keel, and he's showing you the city of Philadelphia. They're actually contenders at 8-0, best record in the entire league, undefeated right now. Don't necessarily think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to get close. I think they'll make a run because they're so physical on the line of scrimmage. Defense is playing incredible. Guys like Brandon Graham playing incredible right out of Michigan. We'll see where the Eagles go, but they have a very high ceiling. They're still improving, and they're not even spreading the ball out to all the guys that they have on the offense. Like Devontae Smith has not really he's had one breakout game, but not really too many. Miles Sanders has had some good games. They haven't really put it together yet, and that's a really good thing as an undefeated team in this league. It's NFL football in general. You're always improving. Dak Prescott came back. They're playing the Green Bay Packers. It'll be really interesting to see exactly what happens there. See if they win that game convincingly because Green Bay has not been able to put it together. And I think Matt LaFleur is on the hot seat. I think he'll be in the hot seat very soon if they continue to lose. I think he'll be in the hot seat. I think a lot of guys will start leaving the team, not really look to come and play with Aaron Rodgers because he's a weirdo, and because he's making $99 million next year. And you heard that right? Yes, next year he's planning to make $99 million because of his contract. It's going to be incredible, and they're not getting better. Their receivers are not doing really well. He blamed receivers. Now they're not happy with him. So on and so forth. The carousel continues in Green Bay. Let's hope they put it together fairly soon. But you let me know. What are your predictions for the playoffs in general in the NFL, right? Everything. It's still NFL football. It's still incredibly interesting. We're seeing teams playing a lot better. Justin Fields, for instance, OH alumni, playing really, really well. He's been unleashed in that system. And I told you before, everyone that's been listening to me for a few years, that Matt Nagy was the worst play caller of all time. Really put Justin Fields in a shell, and now we've seen a lot more. So as we get going, I just want to say that this is the TRUENORTH.BET podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. And understand, if you have anything to say about the NFL, I'm your guy. There's so many different predictions you may have. I right now see the Bills still getting to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. I see I'm going to say this for Eagles fans. I see the Eagles getting to the Super Bowl this year, but they got to get through a few teams such as the Vikings. It'll be the Vikings and them playing really well. We'll see how they go for the next few weeks. And of course, we'll have a few predictions for you as we come back. I'm your host, Brandon Graham. Keep balling, and I cannot wait to be with you all fairly soon. Take care.